40 years ago, I went to see the original Ghostbusters movie in the cinema. It's still one of my favourite film-going memories from my childhood. I did see E.T., but I was a bit too young to understand it. And Return of the Jedi, where I just remember needing the toilet for the final half hour. But Ghostbusters was thoroughly enjoyable, and I've been a film fan ever since. Sadly, none of the sequels have been anywhere near as good, and this one continues that trend. It's got some good ideas, but falls short in many ways. The opening sequence is strong enough that it leaves you feeling very optimistic about the movie to come. The whole Spengler family from the last movie has moved to New York, and they've all decided to become Ghostbusters. Which is a bit of a leap from the ending of the last movie, but it has been 2 years, so I guess things have moved on. It's a really good action scene. They're chasing ghosts through the streets of Manhattan and using flying drone traps to bring things up to date. If the rest of the movie had been like this, I would have had no complaints. Unfortunately, it does slow down after this, getting bogged down in a dozen different subplots for all the different characters. There's 6 returning from Afterlife, 5 from the first movie, and a bunch of newcomers as well, so it all feels very crowded. The most interesting part is the paranormal research lab, where the scientists experiment on ghosts, which feels like a logical addition, as ghosts have been around in this universe for 40 years, so it makes sense that somebody would try to study them. And it opens up all sorts of story ideas for future instalments. The main character of the movie is probably Phoebe, played by McKenna Grace. She gets benched from the team after the first mission, because she's only 15, and somehow that's child labour, even though she's not getting paid. And she spends the rest of the movie trying to figure out her place, although she is a genius, so clearly she belongs with the scientists. In the process, she has a friendship / possible romance with Melody the Ghost, played by Emily Allen Lind. Again, this feels like new territory for the franchise. Human-ghost relationships haven't really been explored before, and it does make you question whether they should be busting them in the first place. Their burgeoning relationship is quite sweet, and gives the movie some heart, but it feels a bit curtailed as they never even kiss, even though there is a moment where they could. Presumably this is so that they can sell the movie in places where promoting homosexuality is banned, like China or Florida. But it does leave the whole storyline feeling incomplete. As to the big villain, it takes a long time for him to make his presence felt. The threat slowly builds up in the background until the movie's almost over. All the great scenes from the trailer with icicles splashing down into the streets happen about 20 minutes before the end, and the big confrontation with the villain happens entirely in the firehouse, which makes it feel very small scale. The bad guy certainly looks scary enough, for young kids at least, but he doesn't really have a personality, so for older viewers he feels a bit underdeveloped. With such a large cast, it's inevitable that some of them don't make much of an impression. Carrie Coon and Finn Wolfhard both had a lot to do in the last movie, and here they're still around, but they don't really get their own storylines this time round. Paul Rudd comes out of it well, with plenty of funny moments, as well as a running storyline about his stepfatherly relationship with his girlfriend's daughter. The original Ghostbusters get a lot more screen time here than they did in Afterlife. Dan Aykroyd has the most. His character started off as the engineer, but now he's become more of the go-to paranormal expert, much like Dan Aykroyd in real life. Bill Murray is only in a couple of scenes, so it's really just an extended cameo, but he still gets a few funny lines. And Ernie Hudson makes a good impression as well. His character felt a bit superfluous in the original movies, but now he's become essentially the boss of the whole operation, much like he is in the reboot of Quantum Leap. And he's got enough gravitas that he can play the part really well. The new cast are a mixed bag. Kumail Nanjiani has a decent part as Nadeem. He's basically the new Rick Moranis, as the nerdy guy who gets himself caught up in this crazy supernatural world. Patton Oswalt is really just there for exposition. His one scene gives all the backstory for the villain, but that's when I decided to eat my mini eggs, so I wasn't really paying attention. Sadly, cinemas don't have a rewind button yet. James Acaster is one of my favourite stand-up comedians, but he doesn't get many funny lines here, and he just feels a bit uncomfortable throughout. It's a bit disappointing, but hopefully it'll lead to bigger things for him. Essentially, the main problem with the movie is it's not funny enough to be a comedy, not scary enough to be a horror. As with Afterlife before it, it's more of a family-friendly action-adventure than anything else. But apart from the beginning and end, there's really not much action. and most of it feels like you're watching the pilot for a Ghostbusters television series, which wouldn't be a terrible idea, but in the cinema you want something more. Cameos by Slimer and the mini Stay Puft Men feel particularly pointless, although you do get the feeling that they could be setting up the Marshmallow Men for their own spin-off, like Minions. The whole thing has a definite feeling of being made by committee, designed to appeal to the biggest possible audience, and in the process ensuring nobody will be wholly satisfied with it. Well, I'm not sure when my next movie review will be. There's a lot of sequels coming out this year. Everything from Alien to Beetlejuice to Planet of the Apes is getting a new movie, and most of them will likely be as disappointing as this one. But I will definitely try to see Furiosa, the new Mad Max movie. I missed out on Fury Road in the cinema, which would definitely have been the best place to see it. And this one has the same director, plus Anya Taylor-Joy in the lead, so it sounds like it could be a definite hit. So subscribe to see my review of that, or any other movies I happen to see this year, and I'll see you next time.